Hey guys, Bob. What was that? The lights aren't working. Oh no.
Be sure to click subscribe and click on the bell icon to be notified whenever I upload great new content.
I know we're supposed to be reviewing something. The heck is it? It's so dark. Robert? Alright guys, this really is the year of the dolls, and we do have a fifth installment of Robert releasing in the US in July, and I was sent the first 4 Robert movies to review for you guys. So first up we have Robert. This one had a 1 hour and 30-minute runtime, and it's about this doll named Robert. People believe it's haunted based off a real doll, so you kind of get that whole Annabelle feeling. But I would say this more resembles child play, because if you've seen the Annabelle movies, the doll doesn't really ever do anything. It's just the doll is connected to a spirit. In this one, the doll actually moves and kills, and it's the doll actually doing it. So it's more like the doll's alive, or still possessed by a spirit, but actually the doll is doing everything. So this woman is I believe, a maid for this couple and their kid, and she starts getting a little too old for them, and she starts forgetting things, and so they're super compassionate and they fire her, and so she gives the Robert doll to their son, kind of, I don't know if it was like revenge, or she knew she didn't have a long time to live, so she needed to give the doll to someone. I don't know if they ever really explained exactly what it was, but she gives the doll to their son, and he starts talking to it, and it starts doing things, just kind of like mischief things around the house, and then eventually it goes into murder. Now this is a low budget film. These are all low budget films, so you guys gotta kind of know what to expect out of these. Surprisingly, for kind of like a slasher film like this, a very low body count, um, very slow pace. They don't really actually do anything with the doll till towards the end, which is kind of disappointing. I would have liked the doll to be more involved throughout the movie and keep it a little more interesting. The acting overall, isn't bad. It isn't great. It's maybe average, slightly above average. Um, but I'll give this movie a 3 out of 5 stars. Now, the second one, The Curse of Robert, takes place after the first movie, so it is a sequel. And and what happens is, somebody gets this doll out of the evidence, and this guy gets it and he puts it in his like little museum. It seems like this little kind of attraction thing, and Robert is in there, and at the same time this girl gets hired to clean overnights there, and she starts to see like weird things happening, and she kind of starts believing that the doll is alive. I would say this one is better paced than the first one, in that the Robert doll gets involved a lot earlier in the movie, keeping you interested throughout the movie, instead of just having the kills and stuff towards the end. They happen throughout the movie. Again, a really low kill count overall for a slasher. Um, so what happens is some of the people who work there start ending up dead, and so the other employees start to become suspects of the crime, and and the people who are still left are trying to figure out, what's happening. They end up going back to visit the woman from the original one. Like it's done so often in these horror movies, they go back to a character from the original movie, and of course she's like in a mental hospital, and they don't really get much help from her. And so they start kind of thinking that maybe the owner has something to do with it. I would say this one, in pretty much every way, is like a minor upgrade from the first one. Like I said, a better pacing. I think more kills in the second one. I mean, they're both so small, it's hard to say. I think there are more kills in the second one. Acting maybe was a little better, I don't know. It wasn't anything fantastic, but it wasn't bad by any means. I think I think this one was creepier. Strangely enough, the second one, they must have already had the third one planned because after you think the movie's over, there's this whole other part basically setting up the third movie. So, so this one I also gave 3 out of 5 stars. Alright, so that brings us to the last 2 films. These ones kind of really stray the path. First up, we have Robert and the Toy Maker. Now, this one is a prequel to the first 2, and it takes place in the early 1940s. And there's these Nazi soldiers looking for this guy, and he ends up hiding in this house. And then the Nazis come back again looking for him. And it's kind of just this really long, drawn-out way of saying that the Nazis had this book and it had these different spells and incantations and such. And so the daughter of the couple who are hiding the guy, she ends up escaping with the book, and she makes it to this other town, and the toy maker ends up getting the book, and he uses the book to bring the Robert doll to life. So basically, the huge part of this movie is really just the backstory of how the doll became, but it took way too long to do that. I don't remember the names, but the kind of the head Nazi guy, like, I thought he did a really good job, really well acted, and I found this story to be more interesting. Like, I just like the characters and the story of it, but they don't really bring in the doll till quite a bit into it. Not the end, but quite a bit into it. And again, in this film, there aren't a lot of kills, and I think there were more of the Nazis shooting people than the doll actually killing people. And to me, it's just like, I still feel like, why aren't there more kills in this one? I think this one may have been my favorite of the franchise, though, just because it had a really good story and a lot of really good acting and a really well-made movie. But it just kind of feels like the doll is almost an afterthought. It comes in so late into the movie and seems to have a lot less to do with the story. But I'll give this movie a 3 out of 5 stars. So that brings us to the final movie, The Revenge of Robert. This one has an 81-minute runtime, so I think it was the shortest of the franchise. And to me, this movie doesn't make a lot of sense. For some reason, this one is a prequel to the third movie, so they're going even further back in time. Now we're into the late 1930s, and we have to go into the whole history of how this book was made, about this guy who wrote it. They don't go into like how he came up with the spells and stuff, but he's the one who put all this information together, and he wanted to sell it to the Nazis. And there's this whole thing about like his wife escaping with the book, and like how the Nazis are gonna get it. And to me, I mean, this movie almost has nothing to do with Robert or the dolls or anything. It doesn't even come in until like really like the last, I want to say 15 minutes. And I want to say the first 3, even though I said they were slow, like there's enough there to keep you interested, keep you going. And this one, to me, it was just like, I was pretty bored. There wasn't a whole lot going on. I mean, there's the one guy in this kills some people, but I think the doll maybe kills 1, maybe 2, like almost hardly anybody, you know. And like I said, that's my least favorite. I give that one just 2 stars. It wasn't that engaging. The acting was still pretty good in this one, but overall, I just found the movie to be too slow and not extremely interesting. So that's the complete Robert series for now. Like I said, we do have Return of Robert coming out July 2nd. You know, I found these movies for what they are. You know, you have to go into the expectation. These are lower budget films. I found them all to be well produced and well acted, better than I usually see in these types of films, but they just needed more. They needed more. I mean, these are basically slasher movies, but you don't see a lot of slashing. Not a lot of like effects are done in this. It's kind of cheaply done, but they are kind of interesting. I thought they were going to be a lot more like the Annabelle films, but they end up being more like child's play, and kind of like with a little bit of the doll, almost like Annabelle, kind of mythology behind it. So if you guys have seen any of these, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think they're worth checking out. I don't even know if you can find these. I looked a little bit on Amazon. Like I think the fourth one is still available, but I think they're all on digital. Um, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys did enjoy the review. If you did, be sure to leave a like rating. If you haven't already, subscribe for more videos. Check out the rest of videos. Check out my website, BOBSMOVIEREVIEW.com. And I'll see you guys next time.